Hello everyone, it's Alexander again, and we're here for a final video. In this video we're planning to add some of the finishing touches to our tavern, giving you an idea of what simple ambience can do to make it feel alive, and then we'll discuss some things you can do with this project outside of just following these videos, being able to use it as just a resource for learning wise. Before we do that, we'll go over what we just done in our tavern. What we have done is we've added music. I'll play it quickly just so you can hear it again. Obviously, yours will sound however you made it. It's completely individual, but mine's is this simple loop. Now, the loop itself still isn't perfect, as with the way we've implemented fade in and fades out, but we can work around this and fix it. However, there was some general sounds missing there, especially from the previous tavern sounds. We don't have any of the ambience of people talking. I mean, we still have our little thug who'll grunt when we go near him, but it definitely doesn't fit how there should be a sort of bustle and hustle of people talking. With that in mind, we'll be able to go to our file share, into our ambience, and use some of the sounds here to replicate what we're trying to make. Now, there's a lot of sounds here that might not necessarily be needed for the tavern, and some that might not even entirely fit the aesthetic here. For example, there's a river nature sound. This sound is just a river with some little aspects of birds and other animals in the background. While this inherently wouldn't fit any of these, you could always put it within the grass plain biome just to get a feel for how it changes the environment. What does it make you visualize as you're there? However, that's besides the point. Currently, we're on the tavern. Now, what sounds here do fit that? We do have the glass clinks as well as a sort of fire in the background, which I think that fits. The water droplets, maybe not. Tavern talking definitely fits. It's just a large variety of people talking in the background, again, to replicate that hustle and bustle sort of sound you're looking for. As well as this, we also have a campfire crackle. Now, while this could fit in maybe a couple areas, it could also fit within the tavern. Sometimes the sounds you want to implement into it might not seem obvious at first, but a campfire crackle could always emulate the idea that there is a fireplace in the corner or a hearth within the tavern to keep people warm. However, again, this is all just ideas for us to think about. But I think what we can definitely add is the glass clinks in the fire to emulate some people bashing the glasses together, and also the tavern talking. So, what I recommend you do is download these two sounds, and then once you have, we'll work on implementing them into our Ys and then into our game. So, now that you've hopefully added in, or downloaded your couple sounds, there's a couple different ways we can implement this into the game. One is that we could just link it to the tavern area. Just like how we've added the play tavern music, we could make a play event. Just within a folder, we could always just call the folder Tavern Ambience or include it within our Tavern Music folder. Drag it here, make it that it registers to an AK trigger enter, and then it'll match these triggers, meaning that as soon as we enter, it'll start playing, whether it be the talking, whether it just be the glass clinking. We can also do this with a pause event, making it that whenever we exit, it'll pause. This is one way of doing it, and it keeps it separate from the music. But as you'll have realised, in my version, I linked it all to the music. So the way that I find is easier and means you can sort of edit everything together. Now, I've added the sounds here to the actor mixer hierarchy. That's just what you would do if you were making the basic events. For the purposes of this, we're going to add it to our tavern song. The way we do this is we do tavern song here. Rather than import it in here, we import the audio files straight into this container. That being the tavern talking and the glass clinking and fire. Import. It's just asking if I want to have these sounds replicated within here. Now, we have all of these, so if I click play, decided to just unname itself there, but we're fine. But as you can see, everything being within this one file just takes up less space. We obviously need to do a bit of housekeeping, just shortening these sounds, some of them being a bit longer, but it's as simple as just dragging all the way here to our end line. There we go. It's now wonderful. It's all within this one tab, and now if we were to generate our sound bank, we would be able to see that the event itself should just change automatically. Doing it this way saves us from having to add new events and just means that everything's incorporated within one sound. I'll need to double check, make sure that's all okay, but everything should be fine. Again, excuse that happening, it's just wise within my computer. I do need to do a bit of a tidy up. And if we play, hopefully everything should be fine. Unit's just taking a second. There we go. And there we go. Again, there's still things we'll need to fix with the loop, but we can do that once we've made sure all the sounds are implemented and that they're meshed correctly. Because as you may have noticed, the talking itself is a bit overwhelming. Well, you might get that in a sort of tavern dynamic, that the talking would overwhelm the songs. For the purpose of this, we want to be able to hear the music we've made. Feels like a waste otherwise. So, what we do is we individually go on to our tavern talking, and we reduce that separate to the whole tavern song. For this, we can just do -8 as a tester. Click. And even that is a lot better. And as it's already included within our tavern music loop, means we don't have to do anything with looping. If you were to add an event just within the actor mixer hierarchy, you would need to click this loop button just to make sure that the event itself loops right. But now that we have these in here, there's always little effects we can add. If you want to have a bigger, more hall feeling tavern, you could always go to effects, and as our favourite effect has been, add a bit of reverb. Again, feel free to add any effects you want. You can always add delay, you can always add tremolo, just for the fun of it, of figuring out what they sound like. But we can just go to room verb. We can add, we'll just do large hall, and we can just individually click this, just see how it sounds. One second. Now it's a bit too reverby. The effect's way too strong. So we can always fiddle with what kind of reverb we want to add, especially using room verb. Or we can go try out different reverb settings. Maybe we just want like bathroom. Again, we can go here, solo this, and play. Again, it's all about experimentation. I'm not a fan of the bathroom reverb, as it does add an almost metallic quality to it. Medium room might be where we find a bit more comfort. Well, I still feel there's a bit of a metallic quality to it. That would just be a case of editing our wet sounds versus our dry sounds. Making sure that if you want a bit less of the reverb, to reduce it, and as well as that up or dry level. We can go here again. Well, there's still that little twang there that I'm not a fan of. It is feeling better, and it adds a bit of ambience. And we can just play this all together. And there we go. We've now got a tavern that feels a bit fuller. Now all we have to do is try edit our loop in a way that feels a bit more comfortable. So that'll be our next step. When it comes to fixing the loop to make it sound a bit better, you may have noticed that I've taken away the fade in and fades out. This is because rather than having the fade in within the sound itself, we're going to do what we've done before. We're going to add it to our event. Now remember, for the pause, we made a big fade out so that it melds as we leave the tavern, almost creating that effect of us walking away. We just need to do the same with the play, although to a lesser extent. Rather than going for 4 ticks, we go for 2. This will mean that as we go in, there'll be a fade in that isn't impacted by the actual source file. To hear how this sounds, we can go to our sound bank, we can generate, making sure to do it twice again. Practice to keep going, as it just works better with Wise. Wise just prefers you to do it twice. And then we can play and make our way down to the tavern. This will also give us a chance to hear how the voices are meshing against the music. Sounds a bit better now that there's not the source file fade in and fade out, but there's still a bit of a cut off that doesn't feel right. So there's a few different ways we can try handle that. One thing might be that the tavern song itself is ending too fast. We might need a bit of space at the end for the loop to feel a bit more natural. This will just take a bit of experimenting of dragging it out and hearing how it sounds. For example, I've just put it up by an extra beat, an extra bar. Let's play it and hear how it sounds. From here, sorry. Now there's that bit of gap there, and we don't know entirely how that'll sound in the loop. So now that we've made that gap, we can just go to our sound bank, generate is checked, and once it all loads up, we'll go back to Unity and we'll just walk in and see how it feels. There might be a few things we have to fiddle with still, but this is the process of how you get there in the end. It's just a case of moving around the files, editing the spacings, and finding what's perfect for you. There we go. Now I do prefer how that sounds. It now sounds like it's almost an intentional gap. Well, it still comes in a bit fast, something that could be solved just with... Sorry, I'll bring us back to the designer layout. Something that could be solved just by making a little fade in. It's not 100% necessary. I will implement it just because I think it might sound a bit smoother. And it can show you that while having the fade in on its own wasn't beneficial, maybe having it alongside the event fade in and out, they work together. I won't do any fade in and fade outs with the tavern talking, as I want the ambience to stay the same. I don't want that to fade out. But now that we have that, we now have a loop that fades in and out much smoother, and we have a bit more to this area. I would say, when discussing the tavern, you're finished for what you need to do in this. Well, there's still little things you could do, such as I talked about in previous episodes, of adding sounds to different characters, just like we done with the thug, making sure he has a box collider and a rigid body, so that he becomes sort of an entity we can edit, and then just adding new sounds, whether it's ones you found online, or whether it's ones you make yourself, like we did with the thug. However, now that we're finished with the tavern, we should discuss some of the things we can do outside of here, or even just within our room, that will flesh things out. Some things I can do here, and some things that I would encourage you to do on your own. So, now that we're sort of on our final steps of what we're trying to do here, and we're trying to implement some sounds, we'll also do some finishing touches and housekeeping for things that have been missed out. One thing you might have noticed, especially within just our starter room, is that when we walk on this carpet, it still makes the wood sound. Now, it makes sense as our default terrain is wood. So whenever we're walking on something that's not registered here, it just comes up as wood. So what we need to do to edit that is we need to add a new floor. Specifically, we need to add a new carpet area to register. So, just to do that, we'll go to carpet. Or, actually, to make it even simpler, we can duplicate carpet 1, rename it to carpet 3. We'll open up our box collider and we'll edit it. Now, if you made a new one, it would just be a case of editing your position to make sure that it matches up here. But what we can do is just grab these little dots and form them to conform with the shape of our carpet. There we go. Drag that a little bit up. But now we have a new little area of carpet. The way our game recognises this is obviously through our terrain switch, but also on a detail I haven't quite discussed, being the layers. Now, we have a bunch of layers for each different terrain, with each little section being their dedicated layer. Now, because we duplicated carpet 1, carpet 2 automatically began on this layer. But if you did want to just make it yourself, you could just create a new empty, call it carpet 2, or carpet 3, sorry. You'd add a box collider 2D and a rigid body 2D. And then just as we done there, edit the collider, make sure it's a trigger, and edit it to conform here. But now that that's there, we can play. And we should be able to see that this new layer will be picked up. There we go. Now comes the next issue. We have this layer, but because we don't have a wood layer set, coming back just stays on the carpet. It's little details like this that can feel a bit annoying to handle, but do have to be dealt with. But again, we can just do what we've done before. Duplicate wood floor 2. Rename it to wood floor 3 so that it's its own object. It's a trigger already, it's already on the layer of wood, and we'll just edit the collider so that it fits within everywhere outside of the carpet. Oh, clicked off it for a second there. Edit collider, drag it up. Now this entire area is dedicated to wood. We can do these areas around as well, and it's simple as just duplicating. We can name it up here as well. 4. We'll just drag this so everything to the left side is classed as wood. Duplicate. 5. Everything above here is classed as wood. And then just our last section, being the underneath. Duplicate. Oh, cut out an extra bit there. And now everything below here classes as wood. We can now replay and make sure everything works, or we can see if there's any issues that we haven't caught on. Again, Unity might just take a second, but never worry about that. Oh. Sometimes it doesn't like to do what it's told, but don't worry. There we are. So now, carpet, come back, and we're back to wood. Carpet again, we'll go up. Everything around here now defines itself as wood. We can now say, for the most part, that this area is done. We've got our footsteps, and it was more or less meant to be our little silent area as almost a control, knowing that whenever we would leave a place, specifically being the tavern, that the music would stop. However, that doesn't mean we can't edit this more. You could always use this as your own personal template, adding little creaks to the ambience, adding maybe a little crittering of insects. That's something we can discuss in a moment though. However, now that we've done the housekeeping here, making sure that everything is detected correctly and that it's all in the right layer, we can discuss our next area of interest, that being the cave. For the purposes of us doing anything to our cave, let's move over there quickly and see what we think is missing. To a nice filled out grassy plain. We make it to our nice and echoey cave setting. Now, there's a couple things I can see already. We have this bat who's making a flapping sound, but nothing's happening. We have the lava that he's floating over that could be bubbling. And we have our two skeleton figures here that we could always add a little area trigger that when we get near we maybe hear chittering. Now, I think the first and easiest thing for us to fiddle with is the bat. Now, you could go online, you could maybe find some bat chittering sounds, you could maybe even find wings flying. But why do that when we can make the sound ourselves? So I would say go ahead, open Reaper, and either using Reaper or using your phone, let's record a sound for the bat flying. So, now that we've got Reaper on, you might be thinking, how are we going to make this sound that we can use for the bats? Or specifically, the bat. Now, one of the easiest ways to do this is to use a tea towel. If you use a tea towel, and if you're using your phone, that's fine. Just make sure to maybe blow it a bit softer, so that it doesn't impact your mic as much. But what we do is we just wave, or sort of almost swing or bat the tea towel in the direction of your microphone to get the feeling of like wings flapping or wings swooping. For example, I'll make a quick recording and we can have a listen. Can even go a bit harder. Now, at the end, I definitely went too hard, as you could see that the audio was peaking. But at the start, I would say we got some good sounds here. I'll quickly just shorten this. And now that we have these sounds, we can make sure to save. We can make a new little section here outside of tavern music. You can always just make a new folder. Call it bats. Even though there's only one, I know. But bats. And then bat wings. Now we have this, we'll be able to sit and edit this file quickly. Maybe even cut it into individual flaps so that we can edit it within Wise. Just like we did with the footsteps, when it came to making the cave, I've just cut each flap into an individual sound file. And then I'm going to render them all individually, just bat 1, bat 1, bat 1, bat 2, bat 3, and render them into WAVs. I'll cut this out quickly just so you can see what the end looks like. Now that I've got all my bat wing sounds rendered, we'll be able to go into Wise. We can go to our animal sounds folder even making an individual folder just called bat wing flaps. There we go. We have this, and now we can import audio files. Now, mine's just within my F drive, within the bats folder, and I can just grab all these, open, import. Now, we have this whole little folder full of sounds that we have. Now, I do feel that some of these are a bit soft and a bit hard to understand. This can be changed, as you can maybe change the shape of the tea towel a bit, maybe make it a bit wider, maybe make it a bit more condensed. You can test out how you can get different kinds of sound quality that way. But for the purposes of this, we can also just try editing the sound itself. Maybe I put it up by 8. And it's a bit more noticeable. This is something we can do with each, seeing how they sound. Some might be a bit louder than others and might not need as much editing. We can maybe also add other effects to it. We've discussed talking about how you can add reverb. This being an effect we could add to this. maybe tunnel. Let's just see how that sounds on the fourth one specifically, making sure that the volume's up. It almost takes away the wind sound, so we could maybe say that that's not what we want. Maybe if we add room verb, that in itself almost mutes the sound that we're looking for. So this is a good example of maybe sometimes in concept the sound sounds good, or in concept the effect addition would sound good, but not this time. They take away from it, maybe more for the fact that my bat wings are a bit too quiet, and maybe could have done with more editing within Reaper. But that's something you can always do in the future, and it's something that can be done constantly. Just because you make one sound doesn't mean that you can't just edit it however you like it. However, now that we've got these bat wing sounds, we're gonna have to put them all together and then make it so that we add it to our bat and that we can hear them the closer we get. Before we implement our wings into the game, I'll discuss the couple of different methods we can use. We could always try to add it directly to our character. There we go. That being the bat. In a similar fashion to how the footsteps are linked. Within our character animation, each footstep is linked to a little select and play footstep. This is something that you can see within the character's player controller script. Obviously, again, this can be a bit overwhelming, but it's simply this part here, play footstep, and where it selects and plays footstep. The problem with this would be the fact of making new script for this character, something that I don't want to overwhelm you with. I'm happy, and I think you should, have a look through the script and see what aspects you understand and sort of where it links to in wise. While this character does have script just for basic moving, that being literal point A to point B, move a few feet between each two, adding more script could be much more confusing and harmful for you at this point than anything else. So, we're going to think of another way rather than just straight up adding it to the character. For this, there's a couple ways we could have done. If we had already had the music here for the cave, we could have implemented the batwing sound into that. However, we haven't had. The reason for that not being there is that I want to leave you that biome to create your own music for after you finish the videos. That and the ice area. So, we can't do that. What does this mean? It means we're going to have to make an area that we can define as the cave. And, in Wise, we're going to have to make a random footstep, a random container, sorry. This is similar to how all of our footsteps are stored in the same thing. So, within the batwing flap, we'll make a new child, that being the random container. Which got batwings. I know I change up the name every once in a while, but it doesn't matter as long as we just drag these in here. And now, if we play this, we have all of our bat wings and it will randomly play between them. So else this, we're going to want the sound to loop. So, if we go to continuous play and we go to loop, we can drag down, make it an infinite number of loops, just a certain amount. For this, infinite. But now we have an audio that's in our infinite loop of batwing sounds. So, we can make a play event, and we can make a pause event. Pardon me. Similar to what we were planning to do before, when we were discussing implementing sounds into here. But except, we did do it the music route, this time we're just going to do it the event route. So, now that we've got our two events, that being play batwing, pause batwing. Oh, seem to have two of those. We can just make sure that's okay. I just made an error. It'll play from that sound and it'll pause from that sound. We can do a bit of housekeeping here as everything has become a little bit messy on our events page. Just virtual folder. We can just do NPC, and this can be where our goat, our thug, and our bat sounds are all kept for the moment. You can always just do animals, and if you're adding more character sounds as you go, you can always just make NPC humans, NPC, animals. But for simplicity, this is how we'll do it. So we're on our soundbank layout. We'll go to our events in our NPC tab, and we'll drag both play and pause Batwing. Now that they're both within our soundbank, we do what we normally do. We'll generate, and I'll see you back in Unity for when we implement the sound. Now that we're back in Unity, and as you can see our NPC folder has got our play and pause Batwings, we can implement it how we were gonna, choosing to make an area, and then bringing the sound into there. So, if we go to area, there's two ways we can do this obviously. We can create new, and just make sure to add the box collider and the rigid body, and then mark it to this box. Or we can do what we've done before by duplicating this, renaming it to cave area, and we can just move it accordingly. This comes with a couple benefits in this case, that being that both our AK trigger enter and our play are both here. This means that we can just drag our play Batwings into our enter, and our pause Batwings into our exit. Makes things much faster and much easier. Now, if we play our game and make our way over to the cave, we should be able to hear the sound, but you will notice an error when we make it there. Just take a few seconds. There we go. So hopefully you're hearing it slightly there, just a little wind effect. However, the negative is that it's not synced at all to our bat. So how do we make this work? How do we try fix that? It will be a case of us going back onto Wise and editing the amount of time in between each sound playing in our loop. So again, we'll move over to Wise quickly, and I'll show you a quick idea of how we can do that. Now that we know we need to edit our bat sounds, there might be a couple of ways we can do this, but we're going to do it the manual way, which is easy if not a bit finicky. For this, we just need to shorten and trim our sounds to specifically just revolve around the wing flap or the T-tail flap. This just means sitting, listening to them, finding where they peak, where the core of the sound is. This means when we go to our bat wings and they're all done and edited, you should notice it a bit better. You may also notice a clicking at the start. That can just be that your trim might be a bit too late in the sound, so make sure to edit it when you can. But now that we have that, we'd be able to generate our sound bank and make sure that it works for our bat. Now, this can be a bit hard for person to person, especially being that all of ours might be different. You might be using sounds from online, you might have done the T-tail, you might have found another unique way to do this. So, part of my task leaving will be to let you edit that. Make sure that when you go in there, it's as close to synced as you can get it. It'll be a good practice in you while doing it in a harder way, doing it in a different way, just using flat events within an area rather than linking it to the animation. It'll be good for you learning how to sync it, as well as understanding the meticulous process that can come with it. However, with that done, I would like to come to a close on the video. While there's still plenty that I think could be done, I would like to leave a lot of space for you. I've offered suggestions such as lava bubbling. You can make a variety of different effects with different players, other animals, with the skeletons, for example, even being comical with it, maybe making a little xylophone sound, replicating the ribcage sort of gag. Even up here, an area we've barely touched, there's plenty for you to be able to try think of. Maybe specifically using this little lake here, add water rippling, maybe droplets, maybe sounds of fish. That's part of the reason I've left these areas open. I want to leave a lot of interpretation and leave you areas to be able to build and grow as you want, especially when it comes to making music in these areas. What kind of music would you make for the ice area? Would it be maybe Christmassy? Is that what the snow would give you? And going for the cave, would you add, what atmosphere does this give you? Would you make instruments with a lot of reverb to match the sort of echoey feel, maybe a bit more daunting, darker tones? Again, this is all for you to do at your own pace, but it's the reason I've left these two open. And if you get the chance to use these and add anything to yourself, I'll make sure to add a way to contact me on the website, just so that you can show me what you've been able to create. I'd love to see any of the creations musically or just within sound design that you're able to do. But again, thank you for listening, and I hope you found this all useful. Hopefully, in the future, I'll make more videos going a bit more in depth and exploring some more extreme or just more complicated concepts. But thank you for watching.